Welcome back to the newest episode of Ryanology. I'm your host, Ryanology, and thank you for tuning in. On this episode, I'm very fortunate to have Dartmouth's finest winner, Sean Allen, on the show to talk about his act as well as a little bit about his personal life. Please stay tuned and enjoy.
DEF presents Dartmouth's 11th annual Spelling Bee happening on Wednesday, April 12th at 7 p.m. Come and see all of our teams compete. All funds go towards the Teachers Grant Program. For more information, go to the DEF site, hit the fundraising button, and then scroll down and hit the Make a Gift button. Search for the Dartmouth Education Endowment Fund. Click on the option, then make a donation of your choosing.
Welcome back. Today I'm here with Dartmouth's finest winner and Dartmouth's newest niche micro-celebrity, Sean Allen. How are you doing today, Sean?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we wanted to bring you on the show, obviously, because you are the winner of our 2023 Dartmouth's Finest competition. So take the viewers at home through that. How did you get involved with Dartmouth's Finest, and what kind of led you to your victory?
So I think I might have told the story to a few people before. It all kind of starts about a year ago. I'm not sure how many people know Charlie Fairfax, one of the most amazing contestants last year, class president. Also, coincidentally, a very good friend of mine. We used to work at the YMCA together, and he told me that he was doing this big show with the school. It was almost like a talent show, and I didn't really care very much. Not to be rude to Charlie, of course. I love the guy, but it's nothing. And then calm the line a little bit, probably 3 weeks later, we were all watching the show. I didn't really have anything to do, so I went down to go see Dartmouth's Finest. It was actually hilarious. Such a great time. And from that moment forward, when I talked to him about it, like what it was like to get involved, I knew that this was something that I wanted to do when I became a senior. However, it was no small task. I know that last year they didn't have enough contestants that they really had to worry about, people going in and out. But this year we actually had a pretty good turnout as far as people who were interested in doing it. So there was an audition process. We had 2 days to get the audition ready from the time it was announced. It was due on a Wednesday morning, and I actually had a track meet that Tuesday night. So my only option was to do it Monday night before the next day, which meant that, and I did not know exactly I really did not ever know exactly what I was doing. It was a very, in the moment process. So that Monday night, went down to my basement, closed all the doors so my mother didn't scream at me, and I recorded an entire 4-minute Spice Girls dance.
Oh, wow.
On my phone, and I think that's where it started. Just going forward from there, I kind of flushed out my act a little bit, and by that I mean not at all. I didn't know. I think unlike most of the contestants, I had no idea what I was going to do for a talent. I kind of figured that I would just figure it out, which is exactly what happened. I think thank goodness there's no record of any of the rehearsals. I don't think they were allowed to record anything. Which might be a contract that we forced them to sign, because there was definitely people there with cameras, and there's definitely some videos somewhere. But if you took just a bare look at all of the acts prior to the show, and you had to make bets on who was going to lose, I would by far be last place, which I think made the win come as more of a surprise. But hey, things worked out, and it went very well, to be honest. The whole show was such a delight.
Yeah. And you weren't one to change your act multiple times. Obviously, I was working up top in the booth, and I was there during rehearsals. Many students changed their acts. Sean Jenkins probably being the biggest change overall to now having no hair on his head. But how would you say from your first instance of being like, I want to do this, to your final performance, you were able to develop into this kind of role that really the audience loved as Sean Allen?
Well, I mean, that's number one. What wonderful question. You're very right. A lot of people did change their acts quite a bit, and I think that if you look all the way back, my act changed significantly. Like my original idea was to do the music video to "I Want to Break Free" by Queen, all in drag with my friends, and that kind of went downhill a little bit. As number one, I realized that none of my friends who aren't already in the show would ever show up to practice, so that was not going to work out. And also, the big Freddie Mercury wig that I needed to do the dance was on delay. I called the wig makers because surprisingly, it's not easy to find a wig like that. I figured I could just find one on Amazon and have it like delivered in 2 days. But getting the wig was a arduous process, and I decided against it. It was going to be like $100 and take about 4 weeks, and I just didn't have time for that. So probably 2 weeks before the show, I was like, I need to figure out something else that I can do. I don't have any real talents, unlike most people in the show. However, I like to think that I am my own talent, you know? I go out there and I talk because I have a good group of friends. That's all. I think that's really what made me win. It was not my act. It was the fact that I had so many people out in the crowd who were there to support me, so many people who I feel so embraced by in the school. And I think that the judges just felt that love and that concession.
Of course. And your act, too. I mean, you had, excuse me, you had audience involvement. You were able to kind of pull at the heartstrings with your singing. You had a great comedy, segment. So how, in the end, were you able to build up that confidence to kind of morph it all together into this kind of perfect little 10-minute time slot?
That's a great question. I think if you look back, it all started, at least for what I played that night, it started the night before. And most people had their acts flushed out, especially by show day. That was a big concern from most of our advisors, I think, was that we wouldn't have it flushed out. And everybody else was very ready. I was not. The song that I was planning on playing before, Viva La Vida, was very personal to me, but it was not one that I was comfortable singing on stage. And also, just simultaneously, like, I don't know if you've ever given a comedy routine to an empty room, but it's hard to feel like you ain't bombing.
Yeah.
When there's nobody in the crowd laughing, because there's nobody in the crowd at all. So I was a little bit hesitant. I'm like, oh, is this going to work out? In the process, I was driving home after practice. It was really late, probably 9 o'clock at night. And I got a long drive. So I was just kind of thinking to myself, like, what am I going to do that's not going to make a fool of myself and humiliate me for the rest of high school? Because that was a larger concern than losing. I don't think you can really worry about losing Dartmouth's Finest. Most people are there for the show, not the win. But I was concerned for the humiliation because it would have been terrible, I assure you. But luckily, I was driving home and it came to me in a vision. It felt almost as if life itself had spoken to me and say, don't do that. Do something better. And in that drive home, Viva La Vida came on the radio. It's one of my favorite songs. And I knew exactly what I had to do. So I went home that night. I watched Chris Martin play it on the Howard Stern show, and I taught myself how to play the song. And actually, when I played on stage that night on Friday was the first time I'd ever really played it in front of anybody.
Wow.
Bar in the locker room while we were all getting changed. So, I mean, it was a wonderful process, but I had no confidence that I was ready for it. I just knew that when the time came, I'd be there. So
you kind of just dove right in head first while everyone else was kind of perfecting their acts. You were just making it your own.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, a lot of had to go into that. Obviously, you having your vision is a great thing, but you were able to, I'd like to say, it sounds like you built yourself up a little bit, and it's what came through to the audience in the end. And I think that's what really hit people the most, is that not only were you there for the comedy, and not only were you there through like the singing and the music, you had them attended there, you had their kind of minds, and you had their sense and their purpose of being there. You talked a lot about your family during the questions. You talked about the things that you didn't have. And I think, honestly, that's what really made people just be like, this is who we want as Dartmouth's Finest. Because in the end, while it is kind of a talent show, we are picking a representative, at least from our class, to, for these next few months, be Dartmouth's Finest.
I mean, that's very kind of you to say. And I at least, generally speaking, really do agree that it was nothing necessarily about like what I did. I think that anybody with, I mean, I don't really have a good singing voice. And if I'm being honest, I can't really play guitar very well. But I don't think it was my act necessarily, or even like my stage presence that really won me the show. I think it was so much what I carried with me on stage. Like walking in the whole week prior, everybody I'd ever met was so kind and so embracing. Like I very much felt that it was not just a show for me, it was for everybody out in the audience who I cared about, and who cared about me. And I think when I brought that on stage, I had, of course, everybody's got nerves before you go on stage, but I do this stuff all the time, and everybody else who was out there waiting for me, I knew that I was going to be fine.
Of course.
And as far as like the questions, I suppose, like, I mean, I think as you know me personally, like, I don't have the gentlest upbringing, but that's not a weakness in my opinion. I think that how I got here is as much important to how I won as what I did. And I think that when I came out, I had more than just like an act to put on, as much as it was an act to put on. Like I can't sing, let's be real. Like it was, if it weren't for the fact that everybody out there was, out there singing with me, they were out there waving, like when I was up on stage playing that song, and again, I was very confident that like voice was gonna crack, the guitar string was gonna snap, like I was gonna fall off the stool, stage light was gonna fall on me. Any bad number of things could have happened, and nothing could have spoiled that moment of the community around me. It was just there for me. I looked out in the crowd and I felt so embraced and happy with the fact that, there was 1 million people out, not quite, but there was 500 people out there, many of whom I had never really met, and I felt they all cared about me. And I think that was tremendous. That was the best thing that's ever happened to me in high school. As far as interaction, as far as sociability. And like I came out there, I think, with a message that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. Unlike I think most people on stage, I had never had like a background of, time to build up these lifelong relationships with people. Like I moved to Dartmouth in 7th grade, and probably most of my closest friends I didn't meet till high school. But that is not a determining factor to the fact that, I think that if you find people out there and you're genuine with them, anybody can become family to you.
Of course. And I think that's the most important part, and that's really what you kind of taught the audience there, so definitely a great experience. And what do you say to students here at Dartmouth High School who are maybe afraid to go on stage, who have not done much throughout their high school career, but that kind of want to participate in Dartmouth's Finest? What do you have to say to those kids who are unsure of themselves, who may not have an act, or who aren't ready to step into that limelight?
So, I mean, that's a great question. And anybody here who's very interested in doing this next year, or even coming up, if you're a freshman, my only advice that I can give to you is do it. Like, absolutely do it. I came in having next to no idea what I had very much a small image of what I wanted to do. And in the end, it had nothing to do with what I did. And I think that if you get up on there on stage, it doesn't matter what you're doing. What you carry with you is your presence and it's your personality. And you have to trust to the fact that nobody out there who's willing to come to this show is ever going to humiliate you or hate you for what you are. And it doesn't matter who or what you are. When you get on that stage, you're a token of the community, you're a token of Dartmouth. And you're a token of the fact that everybody's here for a good time. It's not America's Got Talent.
No.
It's not, a job interview. It's a big show with people who care about you. And it's a big show to everybody who you want to prove something to. I think that's another thing. Like when I went up there, I very much had something to prove. Not just to myself, but also to everybody who I knew and who believed in me and who supported me in that moment, that it does not at all matter like why you're up here. It just matters that when you get up here, you carry with you everything you had before. Like I think that if you get up there and you try to be some celebrity try to act as if, your talent's going to wipe away the judges, which, I mean, of course happened. Like, Alex Kojikaru's talent was wiping me away. Like, watching that thing, I was breaking a tear. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to determine that, you're going to be good at this. Like, if you want to do this, like, of course you can have a talent like she does, but you don't have to. You can be like me and have next to no talent. Kind of only be yourself. That's all I was up there on stage. I was just me, and I was, experiencing it all at once. It came the day of the show. I got there an hour early, simply because of the fact that I had no idea where to put my stool, because I had just been moving stuff around all week. I was tripping over myself. You don't have to be prepared to put on a good show, and you don't have to be ready to be confident. I walked out there, no idea how it was going to go, no confidence that it was going to go well. And I still went out there knowing I was going to have a good time, because I was here for me and I was here for my friends. So I think that if you want to do that, if that's something you're interested in, do it 100%. It does not matter how bad it could possibly be, because every minute of this is a good thing for you, for your friends, and I think for your memories.
Of course. Well, thank you, Sean, for taking us through your Dartmouth's Finest win and a little bit about your life. Definitely a little emotional for me, as a member of that audience as well. I thought it was just wonderful watching your talent, and I felt that you really you were one of the contestants that opened up to the crowd, and you weren't afraid. You had your cards in your deck, and you laid them all out, and you said, these are my cards, and I'm going to play them as I choose. So I definitely appreciate that. Seeing a fellow student, we've been, working together every English class for the past 4 years.
Literally every English.
So, but thank you for coming down and speaking
today.
It's
a pleasure. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Ryanology. I'd like to send a big shout out and a thank you to Sean Allen for joining me on the show today to talk about the win in the Dartmouth's Finest event. Please stay tuned for the next episode of Ryanology, which will be out in just a few weeks, as well as liking, commenting, subscribing, and hitting the bell icon to get any future updates from the DHS TV Media YouTube channel. I also wanted to send a big thank you to both Mrs. Lamba and Mrs. Thomas for making the Dartmouth's Finest 2023 event as successful as it was. It could not be done without you. Thank you.